Flesh and Blood is a really, really good card game. Many other card games like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Have cards that make you think, what the absolute hell were they thinking? LSS is very good at keeping cards balanced, for the most part, and even cards I personally don't like, I can see uses for. But even they have their fair share of blunders. The set Bright Lights brought a shiny new coat of paint for the Mechanologist class. We went from 2 heroes to 5 heroes in one set. We also got Evos, Crank, and a whole whack of new items to play around with. Despite me liking the set, it's not perfect. Today we're going to be counting down the top 5 worst Mechanologist cards ever printed. Few rules before we do this. 1, I will only be focusing on Classic Constructed / Blitz. In Draft, nearly every card has a use, so it would make this list nearly impossible. 2, we're judging these cards based on how good they are based on the time of recording this. If things change in the future and make these cards good, I'll post a comment or something. 3, I'm judging these cards as a whole, meaning if they're good in red but not blue, I can't say this card is bad. 4, I'm not going to say a card is bad if it's a budget version of another card. Cogworks Biggest Chest is not bad because Tekla Foundry Heart exists. 5, this is just my opinion. If you disagree, you're absolutely wrong because I'm perfect. Joking aside, if you disagree with anything, let me know. I'm far from perfect and I'm not that good at the game, so I could very much be wrong. With that out of the way, let's begin.
Welcome to Metrics, the greatest city in Wraith.
For those who don't know, the gimmick of the Mechanologist class is most of their cards have an effect called Boost. You banish the top card of your deck, and if it's a Mechanologist card, it gains Go again. Mech cards are naturally aggressive and go decently wide. So, if you were in the LSS office room, and James White is like, okay boys, we need more items for the new mech set. I need ideas, people. And you stand up, chest puffed out, and said, give them an item that gives Go again. Do you really think James is gonna be all, my god man, you're a genius, take my keys and go fuck my wife? Well, apparently someone thought that was a good idea because we got MHz Script. MHz Script is a Mechanologist item. It costs 0 and it's only a yellow pitch. It has Crank, meaning you can remove a steam counter on it to regain your action point. If you can't remove a steam counter at the start of your turn, it gets destroyed and it gives your Mechanologist attack action cards Go again. So, 1, it's an item, so it can't block with it. 2, it does basically nothing since most Mechanologist cards already boost, and those that don't are chain enders like Payload and Overblast. And most Mechanologist cards gain bonus effect from boosting. Again, Overblast, Payload, and High Octane. While yes, there are cards that don't have boost, they're mainly galvanized cards, so they're meant to block rather than attack. So, while you can use this, it makes the Mechanologist strategy more awkward and goes against a lot of staple cards most decks use. Overall, this card is awkward and does nothing for the Mechanologist strategy but make it worse.
No ether, no divinity, just a spark of genius.
The Mechanologist cards in Arcane Rising are above rate. Like 0 to 60 is a 0 for 4 Go again, and Zipper Hit is a 1 for 5 Go again. While the mech cards in Bright Lights are not as above rate but have better on hits than the vanilla cards. However, some vanilla boost cards in Bright Lights are just worse versions of the old ones. 0 to 50 and Razzle Dazzle are just worse versions of 0 to 60 and Zipper Hit. However, I can kind of excuse those because their cost is low. What I can't excuse is Gas Guzzler. It's a 3 cost and attacks for 6 in red, 5 in yellow, and 4 in blue, and is a vanilla boost card. It's just a worse throttle. While 0 to 50 and Razzle Dazzle are low cost, which means if you have a hyperdriver you can make up the cost really easily. With Gas Guzzler you need at least a blue to get the value of a throttle, making it the hardest to get good value out of. This card is just bad. It's costly and better cards exist and have existed since the second set of this fucking game.
Greatest city in Wraith? Yeah, right.
I never understood Mechanologist buff cards. Most of them are just lame. But like, Locked and Loaded at least lets you up, and Rotary Ram cycles itself. The buff cards just don't work. Like, damage from 2 sources is almost always better, especially with cards that want you to boost multiple times. But Jigawatt is just confusing. It's a 1 cost and gives your next Mechanologist attack action card +4 in red, +3 in yellow, and +2 in blue. This card is just boring. It buffs your next mech card, which I already stated is kind of pointless. It's also a non-attack action, so it breaks the chain. As stated earlier, a lot of mech cards want you to boost, so these buff cards are overall lame and out of place.
Let me show you the truth buried underneath this scrap heap. Metrics was beautiful, until they steamrolled it into a parking lot.
I think Evos are a really cool mechanic. Suiting up like Iron Man and having a strong defensive endgame compared to an early game like every other hero is neat and gives Tekla an odd endgame advantage that most heroes don't have. Most Evo cards I can see a use for. Even ones that I don't think are that great, I can see how someone could make use of it. Except for one. Remember how I mentioned that MHz Script is basically useless? What if you had an Evo card that was worse? An Evo card that did the same thing, but worse? An Evo card that fails as an Evo card. Bitches, bros, non-binary hoes, number 2 is Evo Zipline. It's a yellow pitch, Evo instant, and when it's equipped, It can give an attack go again. It doesn't block.
Are you fucking serious?
Someone looked at Hogwarts base legs and said, let's make this worse. All the criticisms of MHz Script apply here. Most mech cards already have boost, so they already have go again. Ah, but Rage, I hear you say. You can give anything go again at instant speed. That must be worth something, right? Which could be a good argument. If Cogworks base legs didn't do the same thing but better. Base legs doesn't need to be equipped. It gains you an action point, so it basically does the same thing, with the added benefit of being able to deal with Spectra, not that that's a big problem in modern CC, but that's besides the point. And well, it doesn't block, it isn't in your deck, so it doesn't add any non-blocking cards to your deck. But what if I told you it actually gets worse? Evo Charging Rods basically does the same thing. It makes a quicken at instant speed, and it can make more than one, and it actually blocks! It takes a little more setup, but it's far, far, far better. Overall, it's a mystery as to why this card exists when there's several other cards that can do what it does, but better.
There's better ways to blow off some steam, you know.
Before we get to number 1, let's cover a few honorable mentions. Urgent Delivery for being a worst expedite, and not having boost, making it possibly one of the worst chain enders in the mech class. Fuel Injector for being slow, lame, and bad. Seriously, this card is just better if you pitch it. And Medkit. 2 turns to gain 2 life? Are you serious?
When we can see our way forward.
When the bombs go off,
When we transcend all limits.
future will be bright.
Teklo Plasma Pistol. So simple, yet so powerful. Banksy. Keeps hyperdrivers on the field longer. Always useful. Teklo Leveler. Potential 1 for 3 go again. Symbiosis Shot. Free pistol shots. Hanabi Blaster. Big free blasts. Oh, the games you've closed in Blitz. Plasma Barrel Shot.
I will send you to Jesus.
Remove a steam counter. Attack. Costs 2 resources to put a steam counter on it. And its attack is X+1, where X is the number of times you've boosted this combat chain. So, if you've boosted 3 times, this does 4 damage. Or you can play Overblast, or Payload, or Maximum Velocity. This gun is just bad. There's so many cards that cost the exact same thing that do far more. Ah, but you could pay for the steam counter the previous turn and then fire it the next turn. Yeah, you still need to boost multiple times to get good value out of this. If you can't boost, you do a whole 1 damage. If you have Plasma Pistol and Induction Chamber and 1 blue card, that's 4 damage. With Plasma Barrel Shot, that's 2 resources for 1 damage. Not to mention, one of the staple cards of the mech class being High Octane lets you finish off the turn by firing your weapon multiple times, something you can't really do with Plasma Barrel Shot. This card has so many cards, even when this was released in Crucible of War, that do what this does, but better. Which is why this is, in my opinion, the current worst Mechanologist card. So, what do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, be sure to subscribe. I'm hoping to make content as often as I can, and feedback is valuable. I'm Rage of Plasmafet. Thank you for watching.